Welcome to What's the Scenario with PLRB, where we explore claims and coverage scenarios relevant to insurance professionals. I'm Brennan McLaughlin.
Hi, Brennan. I'm Mike Broad.
I'm Beth Stern.
And I'm Sonia Kopeski.
All right, Sonia, what's the scenario?
Today we're going to talk about getting ready to watch the big Bears-Packers game, Sunday night Bears-Packers. So Sam, our insured, is a huge Bears fan. The new season puts a pep in his step with the hope that this could be the year. He sets up his brand new smoker in the backyard and puts a perfectly seasoned pork shoulder on to cook all day, just in time for tonight's big Bears versus Packers game. The smoker was near the side of the house, but not directly next to it. After 8 hours, the shoulder was tender and ready to eat, but the insured siding had melted.
No.
I know. Sam seeks coverage for the replacement of the melted siding and for the pork shoulder that he dropped when he saw the damage.
All right. So are you a big Bears fan then?
No, I'm a Packers fan.
Oh.
But my husband is. So this is for him.
All right, there you go.
Beth?
I don't take any allegiance in football.
Smart.
Really.
Smart.
I'm not. Does Samir have a smoker, Sonia? Your husband?
No, we have a grill. We have two different grills. And
Okay.
he has a chimney for the grill. But no, we don't have a smoker. What about you guys?
Nope.
I do. I have the pit barrel. Looks like a 55-gallon drum, and you hang your meats on there, or you can put them on a grill. And yes, delicious perfection. So I appreciate. What was your insured's name there, Sonia? Sam?
It's Sam, yeah.
I appreciate Sam's smoking because it's an awesome little hobby, and it's a lot of fun to do, and it's easy. You stick it on the smoker, low heat.
Have you ever
Relax.
melted your siding?
I keep it well away from my siding, yes. So I'm not going to do
Good,
what Sam
good.
did, but
How long do you do it for?
it matters what kind of meat it is, and you can put a little like temperature gauge in there to figure out how you're doing. But I actually have in the refrigerator right now a chuck roast because that's a poor man's brisket. So I'm going to cook that up, I think, tomorrow. And usually, Beth, on the pit barrel, which we're not promoted or endorsed, or we don't have any relationship with pit barrel, but they're pretty cool. They smoke a little faster than normal smokers, so somewhere in the 4 to 8 hour range to get a perfectly smoked chuck roast, and that hopefully will happen tomorrow here at the Broad household. Looking forward to it.
Okay, well, we'll get on our way.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the time you drive here, it takes about 6 hours from Chicago, so yes,
Yeah.
and you can get some delicious, hopefully nice and nutritious chuck roast.
Yeah, we'll accept an endorsement if they want to send you.
Right, yeah. Pit Barrel wants to send us some free Pit Barrel gear and some cash. Yeah, we'd be more than happy to promote them.
There you go. All right, well let's hop into the scenario.
All right, so we always start with the policy type. So we might see this under two different forms. An HO3 form, like a standard ISO HO3, which would be for damage to the building, to the dwelling, would be open perils coverage, which means that the loss is covered unless specifically excluded. It also could be under a dwelling policy, which would be named peril.
Ooh.
And then if you have that kind of a policy, it will specifically list the policy, or specifically list the perils that are covered. And so no matter either form, fire is a covered peril under a dwelling policy form, or it would be under an HO3. So the question here is, was there a fire?
Right.
Often, well, it's typically not defined in our standard forms, and so then we look to case law. We also look to dictionary definitions. We might look to scientific definitions. But generally speaking, if it lacks a definition, a court will typically hold that fire means what is ordinary and popular. And that is it's often combustion, which manifests itself in light, flame, and heat. Combustion is further defined as an act or instance of burning, usually a rapid chemical process, such as oxidation, that produces heat and usually light. So typically, it's going to be combustion with a visible heat or light.
Right.
Okay.
So one of the big issues that comes up is a flame necessary. Like, do you have to see, that you could visit, do we have to be able to see that Sam's house is on fire
Right.
across?
This is a smoker. There's no flame. It's
Yeah.
smoking. So it's just smoking.
Right. So we always check with your state to see if there's case law, but we'll just go generally speaking. If there's evidence of smoke, heat, and an orange light, that's sufficient to establish that a fire has occurred. It doesn't have to create substantial heat. It doesn't have to have huge flames. Again, we're looking for combustion with something that's visible. So for a smoker, it has to start, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but
Oh, I will.
it's
You know me.
it starts with a fire. It starts with igniting and getting that heat, and then it's to where then you control it, right? Where you control
Right.
the glow, or you control those embers.
Correct.
So is this
usually-
is this some kind of coal or is this wood that you put in there?
It can be both. That's a lot of times, like with mine, they recommend charcoal, but
Okay.
you can also buy, it's also called charcoal, but it's actual wood that's they put it under not direct flame, but just heat for a while, and it makes it
Okay.
blackened and gets loaded with carbon. And so, this kind of burnt wood is another
Okay.
type of charcoal. And if you want to get into the science of it, Beth, it's fascinating to me. The wood burns a little bit hotter than the charcoal briquettes.
Okay.
But so then you got to carefully watch your heat because you don't want it too hot. Like Sonia's example, you're going to melt your siding and you're going to ruin your pork or your beef. You don't want that.
Right.
So nice, slow burn, one would call it. I like a fine charcoal briquette, but Sonia's absolutely correct. What do? You light it up in a little chimney first. It's going to be flaming up till it gets burning. But then when you put it in the smoker and cover it, that's what puts down the flame and just starts the smoke going because you
Okay.
just put in a small amount of oxygen so it doesn't start flaming up. So that's where that's where I'm at, Sonia. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You don't have a flame now. Now you just got a smoker, but you do have little glowing white
Right.
or orange briquettes. So maybe you would say that might meet the definition.
Yeah,
of
that's
a
the
fire.
light. That's the visible light
Ah.
that was created. So, it's not, if you have smoke and or overheating, that's not enough. So we want some kind of visible, we want something visible as far as like a glowing or a light. And so, where this then turns to is we get a lot of questions about scorching. So is scorching the same as fire? We have examples in our database. Definitely go check it out. And so one example we have is hot Christmas lights, especially like the old ones that really didn't have like the efficiency of the LED, but those old ones that would get really hot.
Yes.
I think they would start trees on fire. That touches the side of a couch. And so that leaves a burn, charred mark. Is that a fire? No. Scorching brown typically means heat, but not fire. And this is not I'm not a fire science expert, but we have said that like some adjusters will look to the color. So if it's blackened, that often indicates fire because there was oxidation and a glow. There was some kind of delight and it created a black mark. Scorch marks are typically brown and that indicates high heat damage. So in other situations where you can see black, or here we just have melting, but if you can see a black or a brown, that may help you to decide if there ever was light. Again, I'm not an expert in fire science, so case-by-case basis, but that might be one way to help. It's not a one-size-fits-all. You really do have to look take guidance in your losses, take guidance from your fire department and from other fire science experts. Under a named peril policy, so if we were on a dwelling policy, the insured has the responsibility, has the burden to show that the peril has been satisfied. So if Sam had a dwelling policy and his siding is melted, he needs to prove that fire occurred. So he would be proving that there was oxidation and there was a flame or a glow, that his smoker had started. There was a fire, but then during the whole process, you could see that visible heat, the glowing embers. If it's open perils, then it's covered unless excluded, and the insurer has the burden to show that the exclusion applies. Now, I'm assuming there was no faulty workmanship issue here, that he didn't have it right next to, he followed all the instructions, he had it where it was. It just was really a freak kind of fortuitous situation. So, if we can show that fire occurred under the dwelling policy, or if there's no other exclusions applicable, then Sam would have coverage for that siding. One other thing I wanted to mention, and this was a big thing, long ago, and it's not as big of a deal now, but courts used to really look at whether the fire was friendly or hostile. Right. So historically, a court would say that the fire has to be hostile to have coverage, not friendly. The modern trend is kind of to move away from the distinction, but you should always check case law from your states.
Yeah, I do remember, when I first started back in the 80s, that was always a big thing. When you had fire claims, they were always asking about, what about a friendly fire? And you'd have to look, and if there was any cases in that state where, because this is a situation where maybe they'd say, oh, this wasn't a hostile fire and the fire had to be hostile, but I haven't seen that mentioned in either a case, or we haven't gotten a question about that in years and years, but I do remember that was a big distinction. There was one other thing I was thinking, Sonia, as we went through this. So let's just say if we're in the named peril form and the flame there was some kind of a fire that started in this smoker because you had to get it ignited and you had to get it going. But the fire never actually touched the building itself. This was just like the heat that came from it. So we might have to look at the proximate cause then. Would we say the proximate cause was this fire and it was just the heat from that melted it? Because, the siding itself didn't burn, but there was a fire going on here. So that's something we probably...
exactly. We would look at proximate cause. And,
Okay.
and, majority of states find that proximate cause is the dominant and efficient peril, what set everything into motion. There was no intervening cause, and so here, a fire is what would have set this into motion. Again, it was inside the smoker. It was maybe what we would consider friendly, because back in the day, if the courts were looking at this, a friendly fire is one that you intend to start, in a stove or a furnace, or, you want it there. But perhaps you could argue that if you were looking at this distinction, it became hostile because it had unexpected consequences. Or in other situations, friendly can turn hostile when it's uncontrollable. Or it could be hostile if it hits a property in a way that was never intended. But I would say that the dominant and efficient cause of the loss, while you're right, it was the heat melted the siding, in a state that sees proximate cause as a dominant and efficient peril, it would be fire.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think for Sam, if we are looking at the distinction, it was friendly, but it went with very unintended consequences. And I think the bed of coals or the wood or the briquettes, they start as fire. They keep a high heat that can be controlled, but that there is a glow or visible light. And even though there wasn't visible flames, across the street that hit the siding, I think that you could argue for coverage here for Sam.
Yeah, because Mike, you probably get this thing roaring here, and then you go back in your house, you don't come out and look at it all the time, right?
Oh yeah,
So-
I'm inside drinking a beer, relaxing. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right, Beth. I'm not out there checking,
Yeah.
but yeah, now because the other thing I bought is kind of cool. It's like a little thermometer that you stick into the meat, and then you sit inside with your app, and it tells you exactly what temperature it is. I don't even have to get up and move. But yeah, if I saw that temperature go up to like 500 degrees, yeah, it'd probably be smart to go out
yeah.
there and see if my
Yeah.
siding's on fire, like
You
poor
put some-
Sam.
Too many briquettes in there or
Right.
something.
Too many briquettes.
Yeah, or wind, right? The wind
Right.
takes
Yeah.
it a certain way, and that could have been the case here. I mean, we just, of course, there's so many facts that could be involved, but
Yeah.
assuming Sam did everything right, and maybe the wind took it or whatever, or that, it just was a fluke, and I think that we could argue that fire was the proximate cause here.
Yeah, and
Wait,
it seems accidental, sorry, Mike, from
No,
his
no.
perspective. I mean, obviously, he didn't intend or want this to happen to his siding, but, yeah, I guess lesson learned for Sam.
Yeah, lesson learned.
That's a perfect segue, though, Beth, into the second part of this scenario, which was the dropped meat. So me, that is not accidental anymore, even in your shock when you drop your pork roast shoulder.
Well,
That
I
seems
saw
like it
that
was
in
expected
there.
or intended if you dropped the darn thing. I don't know.
Well, even if it was not intended or accidental, I mean, that's a personal property
Yeah,
item.
we
your-
need a
your
name
meat, So you
peril.
need a peril for that. Would we go back to the fire?
Well-
That's like another step removed for the
Exactly.
meat.
I think
Yeah.
I put it in there. I thought it'd be funny, but I don't know. I struggle
Yeah.
with Sam getting coverage for his
Meat.
pork shoulder. But yeah, we'd have to have a name peril because it's contents. And was it fire? I don't know. I think it might have been Sam's shock.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, was that another intervening cause? He had control of his pork shoulder. So, yeah, I'm not as confident in coverage for his pork shoulder.
Oh. So maybe what Sam should do is like throw the pork shoulder at the melted siding, and if it attaches itself to the siding, then it's part of the dwelling and it's covered in. Aha!
Oh, Sam's
Maybe-
a smart
Alright.
guy, huh?
Right.
Yeah,
He knows his policy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
he tends to leave it there. All right, well, let's hop into some key takeaways.
The key takeaways today, fire is typically undefined, so courts are going to consider just like a usual, very typical definition of fire. They're not going to get too fancy. It's usually combustion plus visible light or heat, something visible that you can see. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be small. A glow is arguably fire because it has the oxidation and it has a visible light. And some adjusters might look at, in a case where you have a colored mark, whether it's a black mark, which would indicate that this was likely from fire, or it might be a brown scorched mark, which would just be heat, and that would not come under the fire peril. As always, check your state for case law and see how they approach these various issues.
All right, Mike, where can an adjuster go to learn more?
I don't know, Brennan. Oh, of course I know. PLRB.org, Brennan. We got coverage questions about this thing, even one that's on a smoker. There you go. Or not on a smoker. It's about a smoker. And it melted the siding. We have that in a coverage question. That's fantastic. Christmas lights that Sonia was talking about, we got a coverage question on that too. I bet if you go to the Education Hub, you'll find something on fire. We got plenty of fire stuff out there, so check that out. The one thing we don't have that we need to work on, Brennan, is maybe you can come here to lovely Columbus, Ohio. You can videotape me smoking a meat, and then we can talk about smoker quality. And maybe that would be a great enhancement to our educational hub. I don't know. We'll check it out. But anyways, we got plenty of stuff out there. PLRB.org. Check it out. Brendan, you'll share that in the show notes, right?
Yes, and there you'll also find a recap of the key points from this episode and links to our social media. Don't forget to subscribe and rate us, and please give us a call at 630-509-8704 and leave a voicemail to share your adjuster story.
Ooh, that would be
Well,
fun.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
The views and opinions expressed in this resource are those of the individual speaker and not necessarily those of the Property and Liability Resource Bureau, its membership, or any organization with which the presenter is employed or affiliated. The information, ideas, and opinions are presented as information only and not as legal advice or offers of representation. Individual policy language and state laws vary, and listeners should rely on guidance from their companies and counsel as appropriate.